y'all, welcome back to Tater's Garden. We're building a mushroom totem today, and we're going to inoculate some logs with shiitake mushrooms. So mushrooms are not plants, and they are not animals. They're their own being. So when we have the mushroom part that we put, the fungus part that we put inside the log is called the mycelium. And that's actually the body of the mushroom, or of the fungal organism, is the mycelium. Now we think of it in our mind like roots because they're these little hair-like structures, and they kind of grow, and when you compare them, they look like a nervous system. The way that they grow, the cells are elongated like nerve cells. The way they go together, it's more like a nerve cell. We'll inoculate that into the log. That mycelium will go throughout that log and fill that log up as best it can. And then it will decide, I have to go somewhere else. And it has to grow legs to do that. And the way that it does that is through the mushroom fruiting body. So it sends up the mushroom, and the mushroom spores, and those spores get carried away, and that's how the mushroom goes from place to place, basically. So with fungus, there has to be a partnership. It's not quite male female. They think of it as plus minus, but they have to be two different individuals of the fungus that come together to make that fruiting body, because it is sexual reproduction. Genetic exchange and send up the fruiting body, and the spores go out. So that's the very general mycology lesson. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill holes into the log, and we'll drill like 60 or 80 holes in each log. The hole spacing has to do with how easily the mushroom can spread lengthwise versus widthwise. So we spread the holes are supposed to be 4 inches along the length and only 3 inches along the width, because the mushrooms have a harder time going across the cell wall from side to side than they do from end to end. So that's why that configuration. It's a specific drill. It's a 12 millimeter, 1 inch, something like that, on an angle grinder. So it's a high-speed drill. Probably not in terms of efficiency of doing what we're going to do today, definitely. But that's really it. But if you're like, oh, I only want to do 6 logs a year, then don't buy the angle grinder just to have that. You know, just use your cordless drill, and it'll take a little longer. No big deal. We'll put mushroom mycelium that's been grown on sawdust that I bought and got shipped to me. We'll put that in the holes. So the bag of spawn looks like this. It looks kind of like cheese. It's made out of sawdust. So they inoculate this. They take their sterile mycelium that was probably grown on barley or oats or rye, and they grow the starter culture on that grain. They'll mix a handful of grain into the 5 pounds of sterile sawdust that's been boiled in water, basically. So it's water saturated. The grain spawn in there. They put it in this little breathable bag, and this goes into a clean room, not a sterile room, but it comes out of a sterile lab, goes into a clean room. The mycelium runs through the sawdust, and when it starts to look like this, it's ready to be stepped up again. The next step is pretty straightforward. We just tap this in the bucket, get the spawn into the applicator. Once it's full, line it up with the hole, press the plunger, and it fills it up nicely. It's just a little bit of a divot right there. It's the same size, so that it pushes the spawn. You stick the spawn in here, then you push it into the hole in the log. So, a lot of variables, but ideally, I would say 10, 12 pounds. Then we'll seal the hole with wax. The mycelium will spread out, and then maybe in 2 or 3 months, I might be able to think about actually getting a mushroom. But it might be a year. It depends on the wood species, how aggressive the fungus is. You know, there's a lot of variables. Once the spawn is run through the whole log, the fungus will wait until the conditions are right, and then it'll say, okay, now we're going to make fruit and try and put our spores out. For cultivation of this scale or even bigger, I mean, so we're talking up to, say, a 10,000 log operation. So you have a team of 6 people that they're in the mushroom business. They're going to cut logs that look just like this. And so let me tell you about what just like this is. Just like this is a log that is this long. How long? This long, because it's easy to carry. How big? This big, because it's easy to carry. And that's really how they think about it. They don't want that big honking log for 2 reasons. It's hard to move, and it's going to take longer. So if everything is 4 or 5 inch, 42 inches long, it's all uniform, easy to handle, theoretically, then all your crop staggers are going to be in sync. So everything that we inoculate today, theoretically, if it's all the same mushroom type, then it should all start fruiting the same week window on the other end. I mean, you could inoculate that giant log, but you'd probably have to wait 12 years.
One eternity later.
To get a mushroom off of it. So for shiitake, the answer is always oak.
Okay.
That's what everybody says. But the broader answer is any hardwood. Now, if it's particularly hard, like a hickory or a maple, it just takes longer. If it's particularly soft, like a poplar, you don't get as many mushrooms.
Okay.
But that's kind of the balance. This is pecan, so the hardness of pecan is very similar to the hardness of oak.
Yeah.
And so when I called the supplier to get the spawn, I was like, I don't know what to put on pecan. I kind of thought they were going to tell me oyster mushrooms, which is another, you can do oysters on logs as well, and oysters grow on lots of stuff. They're very broad spectrum on what they'll grow on. I've grown them on poplar here, and they really quickly had mushrooms, really fast. So if you want them fast, then oysters, and people are pretty comfortable. They're common. Oysters and shiitakes are fairly common these days, so people are like, oh yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah.
And but I mean, they're not the white button mushroom at all, and those are difficult to grow for people like us. You have to have, they have very specific parameters. So would go into what are called mushroom totems. You break that up, crumble it up, and it gets layered onto the stump. And you can see we cut the stump in about 4-inch layers, and you lay down the mycelium in about a 1/4-inch layer all the way across the top. Crumble it up as you need to. All right, and that's pretty close. So we want about a 1/4 inch of spawn, fairly evenly distributed across the whole thing. And then I'm trying to reconstruct my tree. I'm trying to lay it up there so it matches. Broken up wood. We're starting a hugelkultur bed there. That's a work in progress, but that's what it's supposed to look like in, say, 2 months. There'll be a big hugelkultur bed between them, and the mushroom totems on either end.